Greetings. My name is Diane Skiba, and I have the honor today of interviewing Kathryn Hannah for the IMIA Nursing Informatics Group project called Nursing Informatics Development, Implementation, and Evaluation over 5 decades, personal accounts and experience from international experts. Welcome, Kathryn.
Thank you, Diane. It's a treat to be with you.
Great. I'm so excited to do this interview with you. Let's have you first start with explaining to us what your journey was like into the field of informatics.
Well, in 1975, I was a graduate student at Medical College of Georgia in the Master's of Nursing program. And for a major paper in a Trends and Issues course, I needed to select a topic. At the same time, I was working general duty evenings at the University Hospital in Augusta, Georgia. And overnight, computer terminals appeared on our unit. We had no idea what they were for or why they were there. And so it occurred to me that this might be the subject of my paper for my program. And so I wrote a paper for my prof, and it was called Computers in Nursing Practice. And she thought it was a pretty good paper. And so she encouraged me to submit it to Nursing Outlook. And that was my first paper in 1976, Computers in Nursing Practice, published in Nursing Outlook. And from there, I moved forward and decided that I needed to know more about computers and healthcare, and ended up doing a double major in my master's program in computer applications in nursing and in adult nursing. The computer applications piece was done principally by independent study, because there really were no formal courses at that time. So a classmate and I managed to persuade one of our profs to tutor us in that independent study. So that was my academic base. From there, we came back to Canada, and over the span of my career, has been principally in academia, but also in acute care in the hospital as a director of nursing for systems research and education. Excuse me. And also in the government, working on policy for healthcare for acute care facilities, and also in the private sector. So I managed to have the opportunity to span a whole number of sectors over the course of my career.
That's wonderful. And you also were at the beginning of the Nursing Informatics International Conferences.
That's right.
Founding family. So it sounds like your areas were across the board, with a lot of consulting and corporate work and government work, but also in academia.
That's correct. And it has been an interesting journey. I will say that. I've had a lot of opportunities to meet a lot of terrific people, including yourself.
Why, thank you. Can you tell me what sort of inspired you, or did you have a mentor that kind of helped guide you into the discipline of informatics? Well, it wasn't really informatics then, but.
Excuse me. When we came back to Canada, there was a beginning group called COACH, the Canadian Organization for the Advancement of Computers in Health. And so I went to their first meeting, which happened at the time to be a MedInfo meeting. that this small Canadian group had hosted in Toronto. And there I met a number of international folks, but I also was able to link up to the Canadians in this burgeoning field. In 1980, Dr. David Shires was the president of IMIA, and Medinfo 80 was going to be held in Tokyo, Japan. And David came to one of our national meetings prior to that. And I said to him, David, it's all well and good, but this is all about physicians. You know, nurses have a role here as well. And he kind of looked at me and he said, and went away. I didn't think he was paying much attention. And he came back from the next Medinfo planning meeting and said, you got your way. You can host a nursing meeting in the evening on one of the days of Medinfo. I think I didn't have great expectations. I don't think David did either. They gave us quite a small room at the hotel. We ended up with people standing up, lining all of the walls 2 and 3 deep and filling every chair in the room. From that, Maureen Scholes and Barry Barber in the UK decided that they would invite anybody who had published a paper in this field to a meeting in the UK, and we would have a session on computers in nursing. And it turned out to be a phenomenal experience. And they published through the IMIA Publishing House a report of the papers that we gave to each other. So that was 1982. And they were instrumental in my having the opportunity to go to that first meeting. Then in 1983, I met Dr. Marion Ball. Marion and I were some of the few women who were attending the Society for Computer Medicine at that time. Society of Computer Medicine was one of the precursors of IMIA. And we started having breakfast together, and we both discovered that we were independently doing workshops for nurses about computers and how to use them in nursing practice. And we were photocopying pages and pages and pages for handouts for these folks. And we kind of looked at each other over breakfast one day, and I can still see that breakfast room in the Sheraton Hotel in Washington, DC. And it suddenly occurred to the two of us, we could do a book. Marion's background was mathematics and computer science, so the technical side. Mine was nursing, and together we could do this. So that was the origin of our first book that was published in 1984. And if you look over my shoulder, right there, it's that green book, Using Computers in Nursing. To the best of our knowledge, it was the first textbook in the field. So David Shires, Maureen Scholes, Barry Barber, Marion Ball, they've all been just hugely influential in my career. Marion actually has become a lifelong friend, and we have watched each other's children grow. We have shared experiences around the world at conferences, and we stay in pretty close touch.
That's great. I do think at that time, it was a very collaborative and really enriching time for people to come together and to really help each other, since there was so little out there. And I thought I died and went to heaven when your book finally came out, because I was teaching a class, and it was so nice to be able to say, get the book. And I know from experience that you have really devoted a lot of your time to really fostering and inspiring other people to come into the field. Tell us a little bit about that.
That's been a very important subtext to my career. I have always believed that it's very important to mentor and coach young people to bring them along in nursing or in informatics or just in life. And so it's been one of the meaningful experiences in my life is to work with folks. And quite frankly, we were early on, we were pioneers and there weren't many of us. And so maybe it was just selfish that I needed to create a successor group. Somebody that would take over when I wasn't able or willing to do it anymore. And to some extent, I think I've been successful in that. A number of people have been kind enough to say that they felt I was influential in their lives. And more recently, about 6 years ago, colleagues established a scholarship in my name that is administered through the Canadian Nurses Foundation. And it's for nurses who are studying at the graduate level in nursing informatics. And there have now been, I believe it's 8 awards to young people and in the field. And those folks I try and keep in touch with as well, whether it's through LinkedIn or Facebook or the odd email. I try and keep in touch with them and encourage them in their practice. So the colleagues who established that scholarship in my name have helped me to perpetuate that succession planning.
I think you, along with many of our pioneers, have really shaped informatics and developed this field and brought a lot of us in and just kept trying to keep bringing more people in and mentoring people as to what to be involved in. What would you say was one of your most rewarding experiences you've had in the field?
To my mind, it's been rewarding to do the work. It's been rewarding to contribute on the national scene through much of the standards work that I was engaged in. So the work itself has been rewarding. But to me, the most important and special part has been the friendships and the relationships that I've had the opportunity to build. I mentioned a few folks earlier on, but there are many. And that network of collaborators really, I find now, spans the globe. And it's interesting to learn more about people, to learn more about their country, to learn more about their values, about how they implement systems. That's been an especially strong benefit for me.
Definitely. What would you say some of the challenges you faced starting out?
Oh, Diane, the biggest challenge, the very biggest challenge I faced over my entire career was not the informatics and not the technology and not the people involved in informatics. It was nursing. It was the profession that wasn't prepared to engage with the use of data and information to make administrative or clinical judgments and decision-making. That was hugely frustrating. It was a huge barrier to the implementation of systems. I think as I look at the world now, at least in my own country and Canada, that has changed. We now have a cadre of nurse leaders who understand the use of data and information to make informed decisions, to make evidence-based decisions. But that was not the case in the early 80s and the late 70s.
And still into the 90s in some instances, particular academia was, have concrete boots on, that they don't.
I was trying not to point too many fingers.
Well, that's wonderful. Lastly, what advice do you have for the next generation of people in nursing informatics?
To the future generation, I would say reach out, take every opportunity, make sure that you take time to publish your work, whether it's from a clinical setting or an academic setting or a policy setting. Publish your work so you can get feedback about it. Take advantage of every opportunity to network, because you learn as much in the corridors of a conference sometimes as you do from the platform presentations. So reach out, introduce yourself to people. You'll find that most of the folks in this field are more than willing to sit and chat with you. So I guess I would say take advantage of opportunity, search out opportunity, and reach out to other folks.
And I definitely think people need to share of what they're doing, whether it's something in a newsletter, in a presentation, or a publication. It's important for us to grow the field, and you can't do it just by talking. You need to do it by publishing and making sure people read your material.
Absolutely. And the thought I have to build on what you just said is that publish means a whole bandwidth of communicating your information and your work. And it means that we then don't waste time reinventing the wheel and making the same mistakes in different venues.
You bet. Great. This has been a wonderful opportunity. Thank you so much, Kathryn.
My very great pleasure.